So, before I got busy, the CAA put the consultation out for extending provisions for legacy and transitional category UAS. So this is the results. Go to that page. Go to that page. We don't need that. Contents. So basically, the background is in June 2022. The CAA consulted all of us. Basically to try and look at the C ratings and non-class and not having in place a necessary, and this is the important bit, the CAA believed an extension would likely be necessary due to the UK not having in place, bearing in mind they've had 2 years to sort this out, the necessary infrastructure to move away from non-class marked UAS to class marked UAS by the 1st of January 2023. Basically, or namely, the establishment of the Market Surveillance Authority, it doesn't exist and they can't do it, establishment of conformative assessment bodies and creation and adoption of relevant standards. Now this is where regulation has gone wrong. All of a sudden we've had regulation created, and it doesn't matter if it's created at YARSA in the UK or whatever, right? I'm not going to get into the debate about which one is kind of, you know, the regulation was created, but the creation of the regulation was done with very little thought, in my opinion. And one of the problems with regulations, and any regulator that signs up to the regulatory code, let's think of one, like the CAA, the rules should be appropriate and they shouldn't be over the top. However, YARSA, who I'm sure signed up to the regulatory code as well, all of a sudden, right, we need to have 3 things in place for the C markings to even be considered coming in. So the establishment of a Market Surveillance Authority. If it's just for drones, that's a bit expensive just for drones. Who's going to pay for that? I'll tell you who's going to pay for it. Us, operators. Then we need an establishment of conformity assessment bodies. That's the companies that assess the bits of kit, the drones. And we need a creation and adoption of relevant standards. Now that bit is down to the drone manufacturers. If they don't want to do it, they don't have to. So the third one can only be done if the top 2 are. So yeah. It's interesting. So this was to gauge the stakeholder support, this consultation, for extension of legacy and all that jazz. Now, the consultation is now closed. There are over 180,000 registered operators that are active. The CAA received a response of 4,506. And most of these, I'm willing to bet there's only about 9,000 now A2 CFC holders who just got shafted, in my opinion. So yeah, it's interesting. So the CAA asked the questions, and this is a question they asked. Would you be in favour of extending the provisions for legacy category UAS in the open category? So would be in favour of extending the provisions for legacy category UAS in the open category. So that the A2, for example, is the open category, and that would be a case of, do we want to extend the flying of sub 2 kilos at 50 meters, for example? So yes was 4,415, no was 71, and 20 said don't know, which was interesting. The CAA then asked, over what additional period should the extension for legacy category be valid? So if it's not going to be 2020-23, how many years ahead? So 105 said 12 months. Sorry, yeah, 105 said 12 months. 1,120 said 24 months. And over 3,000 people said longer than 24 months. And not answered was 94. And that was interesting as well, because that goes to show that if they can suspend it like this and just go, for now we're not going to touch it, it goes to show that these legacy aircraft are actually not dangerous. And what I mean by that is these C ratings are meant to be about safety and everything else. And this just goes to prove that the C ratings were never about safety. Just to be clear, in my opinion, they're not about safety at all. We've had multi-rotors now since the year 2000-ish is when CAP 722 first appeared. So if you go back to when CAP 722 first came out, no deaths by a multi-rotor, just to be clear. So it was never about safety, these C ratings. This is just people sat in ivory towers who haven't got Scooby-Doo. There's a rant in there somewhere, let's ignore that. Anyway, moving on. The CAA asked, would you be in favour of extending provisions for transitional category UAS in the open category? 4,357 said yes. 73 said no, and 76 said, I don't know. Then the CAA asked, over what additional period should the extension for the transitional category be? And again, it's 12 months said 97, 24 months said 732, longer than 24 months, 3,522. Now, it is interesting. Now, the CAA, at the end of this, has recommended to the DFT that all provisions should be extended indefinitely and the class marking scheme should be re-evaluated. This will form part of a larger investigation into the current UAS open category, regulatory framework and what is most suitable for the United Kingdom. This is to ensure any solution suitably addresses the needs of the community as well as addresses safety and security risks in a proportional manner. Now, the CAA for years have been really good. I would say up until the YASA rules started to appear and they had a bit of a disagreement with the BMFA. Up until then, I would say the CAA has been absolutely top notch defending drone users. People don't know this, but the CAA is really good. Okay, they're not perfect because no one is, but they are damn good. Okay, and they do fight for our rights and have done for a long time. I know of several things where they have fought for us. So, you know, we're not having a go at the CAA for any of this. Now, at that point, consideration should be given to the reintroduction of a transitional period. This would ensure the regulated community has more suitable amount of time to naturally phase out older UAS, whilst at the same time having the option to purchase class marked UAS. This approach would significantly mitigate most areas of concern in the responses to the consultation. Now, there's a bit more to this, but I'm not going to read it all. Now, here's my thoughts on it. And of course, my thoughts are always wrong. Remember that. So, you've all paid for your A2 CFC. I, for one, said they should not delay anything. They should have got the finger out and got it all done. Because if you paid for your A2 CFC, this has now kicked the ability for you to buy a C-class aircraft down the road. A manufacturer is always going to bring out a new drone. That's always going to happen, regardless. They don't allow retrospectively markings on drones. Now, new cars are coming out soon where if they're in the showroom, they don't have to have it fitted when they're on sale in this transitional period, but they have to be able to read speed signs. And what's really interesting is the cars can be retrofitted with that technology, but drones, they said, couldn't be retrospectively stickered to say it was a C-rated aircraft. Now, personally, I think C ratings should go out the window to a degree. I don't believe in them. I never did. What's really interesting is we have the CE marking. Now, the CE marking, don't confuse it with the C ratings, whatever you do. So all products that came into Europe had a CE, which is the conformative sticker. The CE sticker was brilliant. Now we're going to have the British kite symbols probably going to come back for us, or whatever they call it, the British standard sticker. Now that will go on anything that's got a radio transmitter like a DJI, Mini, Mavics, everything. They will get this little kite, the British kite standards, and this is to show that the electronics, the battery, the radio control, that fits in a standard. We should actually move away from C ratings because we don't need them. If companies make a drone that falls out of the sky for 5 minutes, we don't buy it. It's that simple. It really is. You don't spend 900 quid on a drone for it to fall out the sky. So from a safety point of view, drones, multi-rotors are really safe. No one's been, like I say, killed by one in the last 22 years. You've got to build on that safety if you can, but you can't, because there's no data point yet. And this sounds really sad, but until someone is taken out by a multi-rotor, you have no datum. There's nothing to say that a drone is unsafe. It's only people's perspective that makes it unsafe, if you like. So, going back to my point. Now, the A2CFC is meant to cover us for 4 kilos, up to 4 kilos. I think they should do the following. The A2CFC, if your aircraft is 900 grams, under 900 grams, you can then fly it in the A1 subcategory, which means as long as you don't deliberately overfly people, you can literally fly next to them. You can fly like 2 meters above them or something. Maybe they should put a little disclosure in where they go, you must always keep your A1 aircraft or your A1 flying, you must always keep a minimum of, say, 4 meters or 5 meters from an uninvolved, unprotected person. That would be good. So no deliberate overfly, and you have to keep, say, 5 meters away. For 900 grams and under, let's say sub 900, and you've got your A2CFC. That's what I think should happen there. And then I think they should say anything from 900 to 2 kilos. I think there should be a bracket there, and that's the 1-to-1 bracket. If your aircraft has a slow speed mode and you engage it, then you can fly in that bracket there, in that weight class between greater than 900 grams to 2 kilos. You can fly that at 1-to-1 ratio rule. I think that's what should happen. That'd be fine. I then think there should be something from 2 kilos to 4 kilos. The 50 meters horizontal separation is too much. I think they should come down to 30 meters. And in that case, they can then fly something up to 4 kilos as long as they remain 30 meters horizontal separation from uninvolved people. I don't think they need all these conformative things. I think they should just go with a kite marking for the electronics, the radio control, the battery charging gear, the control frequencies. That's all enclosed in the British Standard mark, in the CE mark. There's no need to go further. There's no need to say about noise levels. We don't buy drones that are noisy. They are, at 7 meters, sub 82 decibels. They are quieter than a chainsaw, a leaf blower, a lawnmower. They're quieter than electric strimmers. There's no need to go for the overkill. You could make it very simple, and I'm willing to bet it would be the easiest option. But the problem is, no one can do the easy option. No regulator can. It's beyond them. They've created this ridiculous 60 plus articles now that you're meant to know, which is just pure rubbish and twaddle for the most part. We used to have, literally, in the rules, we used to have like 2 paragraphs, or a paragraph for small unmanned aircraft and one for small unmanned aircraft surveillance. And it was so easy, it was ridiculous. It was 94A, 94B, and that was it. And now, instead of taking 1 page up in what was Cat 393 at the time, instead of taking 1 page, it jumped to like 4 pages, and now it's just ridiculous. And I do wonder if it's lost its way somewhere in all of this, the lack of ability for YASA and other organisations just to step back and go, look, we can apply some common sense here, but they can't do that. I think they've dug a hole, and I don't know if they can dig themselves out. But for me, I think the A2CFC is now completely pointless with a 50 metres horizontal separation. Now in Ireland, there is one training company, and I'm sure if you've done the training with them, you can get it down to 30 metres horizontal separation. It would be nice to have a little bit of movement and common sense applied somewhere. I don't know if we can do it. It'd be nice, who knows. But basically, it looks like we're going to get a transitional period. It could be another 24 months. Your year one of your first 5 years of your A2CFC, you will never have used the 1-to-1 rule. Bear that in mind. You know, you're paying £50 or £100 for it, but you're not truly unlocking it, nor will you ever in a transitional period. And until we've got those little bits of infrastructure like the conformative bodies, if they're going to have it, and the surveillance body, there's a hole there. And if they go down that road, how they're going to fund it all? It's creating bureaucracy for the sake of it that's not needed. And the proof is in the pudding. I'll say it again, no one's died from a multi-rotor in the UK or anywhere else doing commercial work or hobby flying. No one's died by multi-rotor yet. And that's proof in the pudding, really, isn't it? If you think about it, 22 years, you look at the DJI stats for all their stuff that flies. You know, yes, occasionally one might fail. There is always that, but you cannot predict an unforeseen failure. But they're rare and far between. We wouldn't fly stuff that breaks or falls out of the sky every 5 minutes. That just wouldn't fly with any of us, just because we've got common sense and we don't spend our hard-earned money on twaddle and crap. Right, anyway, enjoy, take care everyone, safe flying, and yeah, the consultancy looks like they've requested DFT, kick it down the road. How far for? Who knows? Yeah, safe flying.